The unexpected diplomat. The Grand Chamber of the United Earth Council sat in tense silence as Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stared at the holographic display before her. The image showed a massive warship hovering outside Earth's atmosphere, its hull adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and writhe like living metal. This was the flagship of the Selphorian Empire, a civilization that had spread across dozens of star systems and considered itself the pinnacle of technological advancement. 3 months ago, the Selphorians had arrived at Earth with a simple message: submit or be destroyed. Their initial assessment of humanity had been dismissive at best. In their eyes, Earth was a backward world full of primitive beings who had barely managed to leave their own solar system. The fact that humans still used chemical rockets for most of their space travel had been a source of particular amusement to them. Elena smoothed her diplomatic uniform, trying to maintain her composure as the chamber doors opened. 3 Selphorian representatives entered, their crystalline bodies refracting the light into rainbow patterns. Commander Thraknar, the lead negotiator, stood nearly 8 feet tall, his translucent form pulsing with internal energy. The negotiations had been going poorly for weeks. The Selphorians demanded complete surrender, offering in return what they called benevolent guidance for humanity's development. They spoke of Earth as one might speak of a child's playground, something quaint, but ultimately inconsequential. Ambassador Rodriguez, Thraknar's voice resonated through the chamber, translated by the neural interface implanted in Elena's temple. We have reviewed your latest proposal. Once again, we find your terms amusing. The other Selphorians made a sound that their translator interpreted as laughter. Elena felt her face flush, but kept her voice steady. Commander, Earth seeks a peaceful resolution, but we cannot accept vassalage. You misunderstand your position, Thraknar replied, his crystalline structure darkening slightly. Your species has achieved basic space travel, rudimentary artificial intelligence, and primitive quantum computing. By our standards, you are barely more than cave dwellers who have discovered fire. Elena was about to respond when the chamber doors opened again. A man in casual civilian clothes entered, carrying nothing but a worn leather backpack. His name tag identified him as Dr. Marcus Chen, a field researcher from the Global Science Initiative. My apologies for the interruption, Marcus said, his voice calm and unhurried. I understand I'm late to the party. The Selphorians turned to regard this newcomer with obvious disdain. Thraknar's form pulsed with what Elena recognized as irritation. Who is this primitive who dares interrupt formal negotiations? Marcus smiled, adjusting the straps of his backpack. Just a scientist who couldn't help but overhear your assessment of our capabilities. I thought I might offer a different perspective. Elena tried to intervene. Dr. Chen, this is a closed session. Actually, Marcus interrupted gently, I have level Omega clearance from the World Council. I believe that gives me the right to address this assembly. The room fell silent. Level Omega clearance was something Elena had only heard whispers about, a designation reserved for the most classified operations on Earth. Thraknar's crystalline body brightened with what seemed like amusement. Very well, primitive scientist. Speak your piece. Perhaps you can explain why your species believes it deserves anything other than subjugation. Marcus set his backpack on the table, the worn leather a stark contrast to the sleek surfaces of the diplomatic chamber. Commander Thraknar, you've made several assumptions about human capabilities based on what you've been allowed to see. But there's an old Earth saying, never judge a book by its cover. The Selphorian's translator struggled with the idiom, but the meaning came through. We have scanned your entire planet, Thraknar replied. We know the extent of your technology. Do you? Marcus asked, unzipping his backpack. Your scans are impressive, I'm sure. But they're based on your understanding of how technology should work. Humans, we tend to think differently. He pulled out what appeared to be a simple metal sphere, about the size of a grapefruit. It was scratched and dented, looking like something cobbled together in a garage rather than a sophisticated laboratory. The Xelphorians made their laughing sound again. Is this primitive device supposed to impress us? One of them asked. Marcus held up the sphere. This is a quantum resonance amplifier. It's designed to interface with transdimensional energy fields in ways that your scientists told us were theoretically impossible. Distributed computing, Marcus interrupted. Every personal device on Earth contributes processing power to a global network. We turned our entire planet into a quantum computer without most people even realizing it. Elena remembered the Global Processing Initiative that had been launched 5 years ago, marketed as a way to help scientific research. Users could donate their devices' idle processing power to various projects. What the public didn't know was that this created the largest distributed quantum computing network in known space. But the resonance patterns you demonstrated, Thraknar insisted, they would require understanding of transdimensional physics that took our civilization millennia to develop. Marcus chuckled. That's where you're wrong, Commander. You develop your understanding through careful, methodical research. We stumbled upon it by accident. He pulled up another holographic display. Meet Sarah Martinez, a teenager from Mexico City. She was trying to create a new type of wireless charger for her phone when she accidentally discovered the principle behind quantum resonance manipulation. The image showed a young girl in a cluttered bedroom, surrounded by electronic components and hand-drawn schematics. She posted her findings online, and within hours, thousands of other hobbyists were experimenting with her discovery. In your society, this would have been classified and controlled. In ours, it went viral. This is chaos, another Xelphorian protested. Scientific advancement requires order, hierarchy, control. Does it? Marcus challenged. Or is that just the only way you know? He gestured to his backpack. This device I showed you. It's the result of collaboration between a quantum physicist in Japan, a teenager in Brazil, a retired engineer in Canada, and an artist in South Africa. The physicist provided the theoretical framework. The teenager figured out how to miniaturize it. The engineer solved the power requirements. And the artist, believe it or not, designed the interface that makes it all work together. Elena watched as the Xelphorians processed this information. Their society was rigidly hierarchical, with scientific advancement tightly controlled by their ruling caste. The idea of random individuals making breakthrough discoveries seemed to both fascinate and disturb them. You must understand, Marcus continued, human innovation doesn't follow rules. We don't wait for permission to explore, to experiment, to fail spectacularly and try again. That teenager who discovered quantum resonance, she failed 247 times before she succeeded. In your society, she would have been reassigned after the first few failures. In ours, she became a hero. Thraknar's form pulsed thoughtfully. Show us more. Marcus grinned and pulled out another device from his backpack, this one looking like a modified smartphone, covered in duct tape and wire. This is a gravitational field manipulator. It was developed by a group of high school students for a science fair project. He activated it, and Elena's coffee cup gently lifted off the table, floating in midair. The Xelphorians recoiled slightly. Gravitational manipulation requires massive energy sources, Thraknar stated. Usually, yes, Marcus agreed. But these kids figured out how to tap into zero-point energy using materials you can buy at any hardware store. They posted a how-to video online. Now there are thousands of variations being tested worldwide. He deactivated the device, and the cup settled back onto the table. The thing is, Commander, you came here thinking you'd found another species to add to your empire. But you've actually encountered something far more challenging. A species that innovates faster than you can catalog, that solves problems you haven't even identified yet. The lead Xelphorian's form shifted through several colors before settling on a deep blue. We have gravely miscalculated. Yes, you have. Elena finally spoke up, seizing the moment. But it's not too late to reconsider your approach. Humanity doesn't want war. We want partnership, exchange, mutual growth. Marcus nodded. Imagine what we could achieve together. Your methodical approach combined with our chaotic creativity. Your advanced theories meeting our unconventional applications. He reached into his backpack one more time and pulled out a small plant in a transparent container. This is a hybrid orchid developed by a botanist in Thailand. She used your atmospheric data, the stuff you've been broadcasting as you scanned our planet, to create a plant that could theoretically survive on your homeworld. She did it just because she was curious. The Xelthorians stared at the plant, their forms flickering rapidly. Alina knew they were communicating with their ship, probably with their entire command structure. Fragnar's form flickered slightly. Impossible, because it is impossible. The mathematics alone would require computational power beyond anything your species possesses. That's where you're wrong, Marcus replied. You see technology as a linear progression, each advancement building directly on the last. But humans, we make lateral leaps. We find solutions that shouldn't work, create algorithms that defy conventional logic. He pressed a small button on the sphere. Nothing visible happened, but every Xelthorian in the room suddenly went rigid. Their crystalline bodies began to resonate at a frequency that made the air hum. This device, Marcus continued calmly, is currently mapping the quantum signature of your species. In about 30 seconds, it will have enough data to simulate your entire technological base. The Xelthorians' forms pulsed erratically. Alina could tell they were trying to move, to shut down the device, but something was preventing them. Impossible, Fragnar managed to say, his voice distorted. Our quantum encryption is unbreakable. Marcus shrugged. Unbreakable by conventional means, yes. But humans have a talent for unconventional thinking. We don't break encryption. We sidestep it entirely. The sphere emitted a soft chime, and suddenly the Xelthorians could move again. They immediately activated their personal shields, but Marcus just smiled and pressed another button. The shields flickered and died. Your defensive systems are based on predictive algorithms, he explained. Very sophisticated ones, I'll admit, but they assume certain patterns of attack. This device doesn't attack. It simply suggests to your systems that they don't need to defend. For the first time since their arrival, the Xelthorians looked uncertain. Fragnar's form had dimmed considerably, a sign Alina had learned indicated deep thought or concern. This is unexpected, the commander admitted. Our initial assessment may have been incomplete. Marcus nodded. That's the thing about humans, Commander. We're full of surprises. This device, it's just one of thousands of projects being developed in basements, garages, and small labs across our planet. We don't centralize our innovation. We let it grow wild, unpredictable, impossible to fully catalog or control. He put the sphere back in his backpack. You came here thinking you found another primitive species to add to your empire. But you've actually stumbled upon something far more dangerous, a species that refuses to think inside the box. Alina watched as the dynamic in the room shifted. The Xelthorians were no longer looking at Marcus with disdain, but with something approaching respect, or perhaps fear. We may need to reassess our position, Fragnar said finally. Marcus zipped up his backpack. I think that would be wise. And Commander, this was just a demonstration. The really interesting stuff, that's still in development. As the Xelthorians hurriedly conferred among themselves in their crystalline language, Alina caught Marcus's eye. He winked at her, and she realized that this seemingly random interruption had been carefully planned all along. The negotiations were about to take a very different turn, and for the first time since the Xelthorians arrived, Alina felt hope. Humanity might be technologically behind in conventional terms, but their greatest strength had always been their ability to surprise, to innovate, to find solutions no one else could imagine. And they were just getting started. The quantum gambit. The atmosphere in the diplomatic chamber had changed completely. Where before the Xelthorians had radiated confidence and superiority, now they clustered together, their crystalline forms flickering with rapid communication. Elena Rodriguez watched as Marcus Chen calmly sipped water from a flask he pulled from his seemingly bottomless backpack. "Dr. Chen," Frackner finally spoke, his voice carrying none of its earlier condescension. "We demand to know how your species developed this technology. Our scans showed no evidence of such advanced quantum manipulation capabilities." Marcus set down his flask and smiled. "That's because you were looking for the wrong things, Commander. You scanned for massive facilities, centralized research centers, the kind of technological infrastructure your civilization builds. But that's not how humans work." He reached into his backpack again and pulled out a small tablet. With a few taps, a holographic display sprang to life above the conference table, showing a map of Earth dotted with thousands of glowing points. Each of these dots represents what we call a garage innovator. Individuals or small teams working on projects that interest them. No central oversight, no grand coordination, just pure human curiosity and creativity. The Xelphorians leaned forward, their forms brightening with interest. But the computational requirements alone. One of them began. "You have presented us with a paradox," Frackner finally said. "A species that appears primitive yet produces advanced technology. That seems chaotic yet achieves results we thought impossible. We must reconsider our approach." "Take your time," Marcus said, already packing up his devices. "But while you're reconsidering, know this. Everything I've shown you today, it is already obsolete. By tomorrow, someone somewhere on Earth will have improved upon it, or created something entirely new. That's just how we are." As the Xelphorians filed out of the chamber to deliberate, Elena turned to Marcus. "How long have you been planning this?" He grinned. "Since about 5 minutes after they arrived, and called us primitive. Nothing motivates human innovation like being underestimated." "And the backpack?" "Oh, this?" He patted it fondly. "Just my everyday carry. You should see what the real research teams have been working on." Elena shook her head in amazement. The Xelphorians had come expecting to find a primitive civilization ripe for conquest. Instead, they'd encountered something far more formidable, a species that turned chaos into progress, limitations into opportunities, and garage experiments into galaxy-changing technologies. Outside the chamber, the Xelphorian warships still hovered in Earth's orbit, but something had fundamentally changed. The hunters had discovered they might actually be dealing with something far more dangerous than prey, a species that refused to be defined, categorized, or controlled. As Marcus headed for the door, he paused and looked back. "Oh, and Ambassador, you might want to prepare for round 2 of negotiations. I have a feeling they're going to be much more interesting." With that, he left, his backpack slung casually over one shoulder, carrying with it the proof that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't advanced technology or military might. It was the unpredictable, uncontainable power of human creativity. Elena smiled. The real negotiations were about to begin, and for the first time, humanity would be negotiating from a position of strength. Not the strength of weapons or warships, but the strength that came from being fundamentally, beautifully, chaotically human. The human element. 3 days had passed since Marcus Chen's demonstration, and the diplomatic landscape had transformed completely. The Xelphorian delegation had requested a formal summit, this time bringing their highest-ranking officials, including Supreme Coordinator Vexala herself, a being so rarely seen outside their homeworld that her presence alone spoke volumes. Elena Rodriguez stood in the newly renovated conference chamber, watching as holographic displays showed real-time feeds from around the world. Spontaneous celebrations had broken out as news of humanity's technological revelations spread. But more importantly, garage workshops, university labs, and kitchen table inventors everywhere were working overtime, inspired by the knowledge that their efforts mattered on a galactic scale. The Xelphorian delegation entered, their crystalline forms now showing subtle variations in color and pattern that Elena had learned indicated respect and curiosity rather than disdain. Supreme Coordinator Vexala towered over even Thraknar, her form a complex lattice of interconnected crystals that seemed to bend light around her. Ambassador Rodriguez, Vexala's voice resonated like a symphony. We have spent these days studying your species more carefully. We acknowledge our previous assessment was limited. Marcus entered the chamber, this time wearing a slightly more formal jacket, though still carrying his signature backpack. He nodded respectfully to the Supreme Coordinator. Dr. Chen, Vexala continued, your demonstration has forced us to reevaluate not just humanity, but our understanding of technological development itself. We have questions. Marcus smiled. I'm happy to provide answers, though I should warn you. With humans, every answer tends to lead to more questions. The Supreme Coordinator's form flickered in what Elena now recognized as amusement. Indeed, we have observed this tendency. Please, explain to us how a species with such limited resources and no central scientific authority achieved breakthroughs that took us millennia. Marcus gestured to the holographic displays around the room. It's precisely because we lack those things that we innovate the way we do. When the Wright brothers built the first airplane, they weren't aerospace engineers, they were bicycle mechanics. When a British codebreaker named Turing conceptualized the computer, he wasn't working with advanced technology. He was working with pure mathematics and imagination. He pulled up a display showing a complex web of connections. Human innovation is networked, not hierarchical. Ideas flow freely, combine in unexpected ways, mutate and evolve. What you see as chaos, we see as infinite possibility. Sometimes, Marcus agreed, but more often, it requires someone asking what if, and having the freedom to find out. He pulled up another display. Meet Dr. Patricia Wong, a marine biologist who was studying bioluminescent jellyfish. While trying to understand how they produce light, she accidentally discovered a principle that led to our breakthrough in zero-point energy extraction. The image showed a woman in a wetsuit, holding a glowing jellyfish, her face lit with wonder. She wasn't trying to solve an energy crisis. She was just curious about how jellyfish glow. That's how human innovation works. We follow our curiosity wherever it leads. Vexala's form pulsed thoughtfully. We have spent eons perfecting our approach to science and technology. We progress steadily, methodically, each advancement carefully validated before the next begins. You seem to leap randomly. Not randomly, Marcus corrected. Creatively. We make connections others don't see. We try things that shouldn't work. And sometimes, gloriously, they do. He reached into his backpack and pulled out what looked like a child's toy, a simple spinning top. This is based on a design created by a 10-year-old boy in Mumbai. He was playing with magnets and accidentally created a perpetual motion system that violates 3 of your fundamental laws of physics. The Selthorian's forms brightened with shock. Impossible, Thraknar declared. The laws of thermodynamics are absolute. Marcus set the top spinning. It continued to spin, showing no signs of slowing down. Are they just the best understanding we had at the time? The boy didn't know these laws were supposed to be unbreakable, so he broke them. Elena watched as the Selthorians observed the spinning top with something approaching reverence. She realized this was more than just a diplomatic moment. It was a fundamental shift in how an advanced civilization viewed the universe. You see, Marcus continued, human strength isn't in our technology or our resources. It's in our refusal to accept limitations. We don't just think outside the box. We pretend the box doesn't exist. And when someone tells us something is impossible, we take it as a challenge. Vexala moved closer to the spinning top. We have encountered many species in our expansion across the galaxy. Most follow predictable patterns of development. But you are an anomaly. We prefer the term unique, Elena interjected with a smile. The Supreme Coordinator's form shifted to a deep purple, a color Elena had never seen before. We came here intending to offer you a place in our empire as a subordinate species. Now we find ourselves in the unprecedented position of needing to negotiate as equals. Marcus nodded. And that's where things get interesting. Because humans don't just want to trade technology or resources. We want to trade ideas, perspectives, ways of thinking. We want to learn from you, but we also want you to learn from us. He pulled up one final display, a project proposal that had been hastily put together in the last few days. This is a joint initiative some of our scientists and your researchers have been discussing. A combination of your methodical approach and our creative chaos. We're calling it the Synthesis Project. The display showed plans for a research station that would orbit between Earth and the Excelforian homeworld, staffed by both species, operating under principles that combined both approaches to science and discovery. The goal, Marcus explained, isn't just to advance technology. It's to create entirely new ways of understanding the universe, ways that neither of our species could discover alone. Vexala studied the proposal, her form cycling through colors faster than Alina could track. Finally, she settled on a soft golden hue. This is unprecedented. No species has ever proposed such a thing. Well, Marcus grinned. Humans do have a habit of doing things that have never been done before. The negotiations that followed were unlike anything in diplomatic history. Instead of discussing territory or resources, they discussed imagination and possibility. Instead of drawing boundaries, they erased them. The Excelforians, for all their advanced technology, found themselves learning from a species they had dismissed as primitive. As the summit concluded, Vexala made a formal declaration. Let it be known throughout the galaxy that Earth stands not as a conquered world, but as an equal partner in the pursuit of knowledge and discovery. We came here as would-be conquerors and leave as collaborators. After the Excelforians departed, Alina found Marcus on the observation deck, watching their ships prepare for departure. His backpack sat beside him, looking as worn and ordinary as ever. You know, she said, when this all started, I thought we were facing the end of human independence. Marcus smiled. Instead, we're facing the beginning of something much bigger. The galaxy just learned that humans aren't just another species to be cataloged and controlled. We're the wild card, the random element, the factor that makes every equation unpredictable. He patted his backpack. And the best part? This really is just my everyday carry. Wait until they see what we come up with next. As the Excelforian ships entered hyperspace, Alina realized that humanity hadn't just survived first contact. They had fundamentally changed how the galaxy viewed technological and social evolution. The advanced civilizations of the galaxy had encountered something they couldn't predict, couldn't control, and couldn't ignore: the boundless, chaotic, beautiful potential of human creativity. And somewhere on Earth, in a garage or a basement or a kitchen table, someone was already working on the next impossible breakthrough. Not because they were told to, not because it was part of a grand plan, but simply because they wondered what if. That, Alina thought, was humanity's true strength. Not their weapons or their technology, but their unquenchable curiosity and their absolute refusal to accept that anything was truly impossible. The stars beckoned, and humanity was ready to answer. Not as conquerors or conquered, but as the universe's most unpredictable explorers, armed with nothing more than creativity, determination, and maybe a worn leather backpack full of impossible dreams made real.